Welcome, travelers, to a rather dark explainer today. For this journey, I'm speaking to you not just as your host, but as a weary storyteller. Or perhaps something a bit older and far more inevitable. Think of me as the Red Death. We're raising the curtain on a tragic play we're calling The Gilded Labyrinth and the Theater of the Red Death. Settle in, step into the shadows with me, and let us uncover the terrible, terrible cost of illusion.
The shadow ring shall bind the spirit's breath, the golden band shall lead the brave to death. Now, this isn't just some spooky poetry, it is the inescapable doom of the labyrinth of time. What's truly terrifying here is the perilous illusion of power. You might believe a magic ring gives you control, but as we're going to see, it quite literally just binds your breath and marches you directly to the grave.
Let's set the scene for our play. We're descending into the mud-slicked ruins of a world that was once governed by gold, but is now completely choked by a thick, metallic mist. And right in the center of this charred circle rule two figures, a mad jester king and a wizard. They're basically the narcissistic wardens of a dying theater state. They don't build, they merely perform. And their stage? Well, it's eagerly waiting for its actors.
So what's actually driving these two wardens? It's the will to power. These dark architects built this massive stage to create an alchemical illusion. Their whole goal is to completely bypass the king's order, the natural virtuous laws of the world. They want to escape the heavy consequences of their own actions. They're manipulating reality just so they can avoid the burdens of living a moral life, acting as puppet masters operating in the dark.
All right, moving into Act 1, Relics of False Power. This is where our failing subjects, the Golden Knight and the Pale Priest, enter the gilded cage. They're desperately seeking refuge from the void, and they are completely, absolutely oblivious to the trap they've just stumbled into.
Now here is the bait that springs their trap. The knight finds this golden ring of invisibility, and of course, he perceives it as a heroic tool to fuel his own passions. Meanwhile, the priest? He claims a mercury-soaked shadow ring. It's a dark band that perfectly mirrors his own internal spiritual famine. Both of these men actually believe they found salvation. It's kind of pathetic, really, this desperate attempt to legislate their own decay into non-existence.
This brings us right to the ancient philosophy of Glaucon. Glaucon argued that justice is basically just a second-class good, a heavy burden we only put up with to avoid punishment or secure some kind of reward. By grabbing these rings, our knight and priest become literal puppets to this idea. They genuinely think that by controlling their outward appearances, they can finally, completely escape consequence. But no, it doesn't work like that.
Which brings us to Act 2, the corrosive acid of the soul. This is where the iron teeth of the labyrinth snap shut.
You see, the trap tightens using the jester's weaponized prose. He doesn't come at them with a sword. He greets them with his wild, raging river of speech. Using what he calls the catechism of the scutcheon, he openly mocks the knight's sacred honor, basically calling it a fancy decoration for rotting meat. Ouch, right? And for the priest, he weaves this web of false intimacy, a closed circuit of psychic hunger. It's a jagged razor of social engineering that effortlessly strips away their royal masks.
What's super fascinating here is the philosophical tug-of-war going on. On one side, Glaucon would look at this and call it the pursuit of appetite, using social engineering and false intimacy to get exactly what you want. But Socrates steps in with a massive counter-argument, the enslaved soul. Socrates warned that a soul succumbing to base appetite doesn't actually become free. It becomes fundamentally unhappy. It gets trapped in a thresher of its own making, doomed to suffer total spiritual disharmony.
And making sure that spiritual disharmony stays locked in, that's the wizard's job. Using Wotan's eye for absolute surveillance and the art of foil to twist and manipulate reality, he provides the structural glue for this invisible reign of unproductive stagnation. He turns the whole theater state into a pressurized chamber of terror. He literally anchors every single arrogant thought these men have straight down into the dust, using the heavy spirit of gravity.
But here's the thing. Every illusion has a time limit, and it's measured by the great clock of consequence. It goes in stages. First, you get the hour of revelry, where these guys run around playing at being untouchable gods. Then, a heavy, metallic clink forces the hour of nervous silence. You can feel the dread. And finally, the deep chime of the funeral knell. This cosmic clockwork is ticking right now, bridging the gap between their temporary golden illusion and the eternal void.
That ticking leads us directly into Act 3, Puppets on a Crimson Stage. We're about to watch a horrifying descent from shining golden armor down to nothing but crimson ash.
Let's walk through the actual evolution of this Crimson Shadow. It's a tragic internal shift. Step 1. They walk right into the gilded cage of their own hubris. Step 2. The rings expose their deep spiritual famine. Step 3. The wizard's constant surveillance forces them into unproductive stagnation. And finally, Step 4. The Thresher. Their souls are now fully enslaved by the disciplined psychic harness woven by our dark architects. The Crimson Shadow has completely taken over. So, what do enslaved souls actually do? Well, they perform. On this stage of counterfeits, the knight uses his fancy invisibility to strike down the exact innocence he once swore to protect. The priest, he uses his shadow energy to turn his holy cathedral into a literal thresher of humanity, their snapping bones making red the snow. It's brutal. They aren't even masters of their fate anymore. They are completely disposable props, acting out the jester's structured symphony of destruction.
And that brings us to the finale. Act 4, Breaking the Veil. The life of the Great Clock finally expires, and the whole grand alchemical illusion just collapses in on itself.
The time for debate has ended. The time for the sacred no has begun. The veil is officially broken, and I step from the shadows. As the ultimate stage director, I arrive, not as a savior, mind you, but as a potential ally to the Mad Jester King. The Red Death has come to finish the play.
Welcome to the Grand Cleaner's Dominion. All that visual splendor? Permanently extinguished, because there is literally no fortress high enough to keep out the absolute dominion of night. The dead branches of human hubris have been violently pruned. It's exactly like Socrates warned. Unvirtuous power breathed out through the mouth ultimately consumes both the ruler and the ruled. In these charred ruins, only darkness, decay, and the Red Death remain, holding perfect, total silence.
So, I leave you with this explainer's final Socratic question. When the great clock strikes and your royal mask falls, what will remain of your soul in the dark? Take a moment to think about your own spiritual harmony and the inescapable truth of the void. Thank you for joining me in this tale of the Gilded Labyrinth. Reflect on the shadows, my friends, and I will see you when the clock strikes next.